Are you constantly distracted, falling behind, and staying late? Learn how to sharpen your focus and beat procrastination so you can get more done and actually get home on time. Cheryl Chase, PhD, is a licensed clinical psychologist based in Independence, Ohio, specializing in psychological assessments and treatments for clients across the lifespan. With a focus on conditions like ADHD, learning disorders, and emotional challenges, Dr. Chase offers expert diagnostic services and tailored treatment strategies. In addition to her clinical work, she's a sought-after international speaker delivering dynamic workshops on executive functioning, dyslexia, co-regulation, emotional concerns, ADHD, and improving performance both at work and in school. This is not just for those with ADHD. This can help us all be more efficient. And there was so much great material that we had to split it into 2 episodes. So make sure you check out part 2 out next week. You're listening to Succeed in Medicine, the show for practicing physicians who want to master the parts of their career and life that med school never prepared us for. From interpersonal skills to career navigation to the essential information every physician needs. I'm Dr. Bradley Block, and in every episode, we bring you brass tacks advice and immediately applicable insights from world-class experts so you can feel prepared wherever your MD takes you and build a life in medicine that's sustainable, rewarding, and actually worth all those years of sacrifice. Dr. Cheryl Chase, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So you specialize in ADHD, executive functioning, and dyslexia. Yeah. And most of my listeners, I think, would identify themselves as being pretty neurotypical, but they are professionally aggressive, right? These are really go-getters and hustlers, and that's why they're listening to the show, right? They want to be better versions of themselves. And so why should we have someone with your expertise on the show to talk to them?
It's a great question. And I have to tell you, when you first reached out to me, my question to you was, how can I be helpful? And as you and I talked, we came to the conclusion that a lot of what I do, how I came to the field, was really working with people with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or other neuroatypicalities or neurodiversities. And I work with a lot of people with ADHD who struggle with organization, time management, procrastination, those sorts of things that many physicians who are pushing the edge of the envelope, pushing their brains to their maximum capabilities, are also saying, I could use strategies to improve my time management, organization, prioritization. And I'm getting a lot of calls at my practice from high-level professionals who are saying, caught you on a podcast, or I caught you at a seminar when I was learning how to help my son, help my child, or help my spouse. But I really think that those strategies could be helpful for myself. I'm an attorney. I'm a physician. So would you work with me? And that's how I came to work with you here today, taking a lot of these strategies that I use for my clients who have official diagnoses and saying, how can we apply these in your work environment as well?
We have a lot of listeners who are physician all day, and then they get home and maybe they're the medical director of the surgery and some responsibilities elsewhere. They're really pushing the envelope. And so they really need to make the most out of the time. There's the whole self-care aspect. You've got family responsibilities there and present. So you want to be able to handle your stuff, get in and get out. And that's something that I personally struggle with as well. Like there's some messing around in between. And my wife is always like, it's fine. As she says, treat yourself, right? It's fine. You allow yourself to scroll, allow yourself to do, right? But at the same time, I end up kicking myself 90% of the time for doing things like that, where I do mess around. And so let's start with physicians, because it's all we talk about, right? You've had physician clients. And so what are some of the common issues that they've had to overcome? What are some common threads that you've seen?
Yep. So I went through some of my notes and I went through some of my charts, if you will. And I thought to myself, what are some of the key themes that I've seen in my physician clients? And then I cross-referenced with other high-end professionals. And I jotted down what I think are the 5 most common that fall under this executive function piece. And overload. Overload is the big one, meaning boring tasks. So when it's exciting, when it's something that I love about my job, I can crank it out when it comes to face-to-face with patients and with or doing surgeries or performing procedures, love it. But man, the paperwork, man, the record keeping, that stuff's not fun. And it's overload with regulations and with charting and just so much. And what happens is that stuff kind of backs up and stacks up. And then all of a sudden I have a mountain to climb. Time management would be the second thing that I hear a lot about, with massive caseloads and really struggling with home life balance, as you said. And then with that comes all the guilt. When I'm at work, I'm thinking about home things. When I'm at home, I'm thinking about work things. And I hear a lot about that from females especially, but I know a lot of men are coming in my practice as well and saying, I feel like I need to be doing more at home. But for women, I hear a lot about finding the right childcare, who's going to stay home when the kids are sick, and a lot of that juggle as well. But the caseloads I'm hearing are unnaturally high.
So just the volume of work to begin with. Okay.
Yes.
So let's start with the first thing you said. The first thing you said was the tasks that you really don't want to do.
Correct.
Right? Like the charting. And so one of the things when I talk to people about charting, and that's been on the show before, and for those who want to check out the old episodes, Sarah Smith and Junaid Niazi are two physicians that have had great episodes on just getting your charts done and getting home. And one of their simple mantras that both of them talk about is just, when you're done seeing the patient in front of you, finish the chart in front of you and do not go on to the next patient until that chart is done. And even though that next patient's going to have to wait another minute or 2 or 3, it's fine. Make them wait. Get your chart done. But I don't want to get that chart done. It's boring. It's unsatisfying. I've already done the fun stuff, which is meeting the patient, interacting with the patient, figuring out what's wrong with them and treating them and sending them on their way. And now I've got to sit and do the boring stuff, which is documenting, which is also the good stuff because that's how we get paid. But it's not very satisfying. And me, mentally, I'll talk to other people about doing it, but it will back up. I sometimes do it and I sometimes don't, especially if there's a time crunch. And so it's one, I feel sometimes the patients are looking at my butt. So what happens is where I do my notes, there's sometimes an open door behind me and the patient's looking at me, right? And they're in a chair, so they're a little, looking at my butt while I'm typing, and I feel bad that they're waiting for me. And so there's a couple of different pressures. There's, I feel bad making them wait, and also it's boring stuff that I don't like doing.
Sure.
So then how do I trick myself or whatever it takes to do that task?
That's a great question. So there's a couple of things I want you to consider. So let's specifically stay on that charting, and let's specifically stay on charting after you see a patient. There's a couple of things to think about. So number one, if we want to talk about this as a willpower versus a habit activity. So if you had the pleasure of reading Atomic Habits, we can build on that. If you haven't read it, oh my gosh, pop it in on audio and give it a listen. In the first half hour, you will have already learned more about habit building than you ever realized was important.
So we've had actually BJ Fogg on the show a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And James Clear took a lot of the stuff from BJ Fogg and was just the first to publish before Dr. Fogg. So
they always say, and by the way, Atomic Habits was built on the shoulders of.
Yes.
But absolutely.
So if you want to, check out Dr. Fogg's episode.
Absolutely, the habit loop. And so willpower implies that you just have to get it out and you have to just work really hard, and that somehow if you work hard enough or if you don't work hard enough, then you'll get it done. And if you don't work hard enough, then there's shame and there's guilt and there's
something wrong with you. Yeah.
Yes.
You don't want to do boring stuff. There must be something wrong with you.
Correct. And that you just got to gut it through. But in reality, what we know is that if we set the environment just right, we can increase the likelihood that we will comply with this habit. So if you want to build a habit, you have to make the cues or the triggers for that habit more available for yourself. So as you were saying, there are aspects of the charting process, your butt being right there for everybody to walk by and see, or for people to see out the window, that is aversive to you. So we have to eliminate that somehow. Figure out a way to chart or move where that is so that's not aversive and that's not rubbing you the wrong way and creating an uncomfortable situation. We also want to make sure that the charting process is readily available, like smacking you in the face, so that the cue to chart is available all the time and around you. And then if we can, pair charting with something enjoyable. If there's a treat that you love, put a little bowl of those treats right next to that computer. And as you chart, you let yourself have a couple of peanut M&Ms or whatever.
That's going to be a whole giant bag. I see a lot of patients, so it's going to be a giant bag of M&Ms in the day. But actually what I do have is I have tea. And so I don't get to have my tea. It's usually like, oh, I just saw a bunch of patients. I deserve some tea.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're saying is, no, you don't deserve that tea until you finish the chart. And then you get to
you
have
want
it.
to give a reward for doing it. And I will tell you, I do have people who say to me, you know what? If I want M&Ms, I'm grabbing a handful of M&Ms. That might be where the willpower comes in. You say, I do need to not give myself the treat unless I've done the thing. So first of all, you want to increase the availability of whatever it takes to chart. And so the other piece of this, building the habit part, if you don't or cannot engage in the entire behavior, if you can't do the full charting, do a version of it, a mini version. So you have your pad of paper, you take some notes, and then you flip on to the next
So what
thing.
you're saying is get a couple of steps in. So you might not be able to final chart, but at least sneak a couple of steps in so there's that much less for you to do.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, the other thing you want to do is, you said trick yourself. You're on the right track.
Actually, hold on one second, because I just want to build on what you just said.
Yes.
Because I think there's a little bit of momentum there that happens. So you're like, okay, I'm not going to finish the whole chart, but I'm just going to do the physical exam and a little bit of the plan, but not the whole thing. Or, I'll order the tests, but I won't write up the plan.
You're so right. Yep.
And then I think what'll happen mentally for a lot of them, maybe not all of them, is you'll just be like, all right, well, I'm almost done now. I might as well just finish the chart, right? Yep. And so it's like, well, I'll walk into the gym, but I have permission to leave the gym if I really don't feel like I'm up. And if you're already there, you're more likely to do it. So
you got it. And that's what Fogg talks about even in the book, that if you cannot do the entire workout because of time, because of an injury, because of whatever, you get there and you do 50%, you do 20%, but you don't drop the habit entirely. Yeah. And it would be up to you then at that point if you say, I want to do the part of charting I hate the most. I hate the most, and get that one out of the way. Or I want to do the lowest hanging fruit. I'm going to do the part that at least I know I got that thing done. And as you said, sometimes you may look and turns out your patient's running late. The one that should be in room 7 isn't in room 7. And you're like, well, I'm just going to bang this thing out. I got it done. Yeah. Crazy things can happen. And my mantra is there's always time to do what's right. You would be surprised. Time does open up. And if you're doing the right thing you may get a couple more sentences done than you expected. Yeah. And as you said, there can be a momentum that you build, and you are building a habit. You are strengthening the habit, and charting, like other skills, does get better over time. And then you had said, how can I trick myself to do this thing that I really hate doing? And you said something really interesting. That's why and how we get paid. When we are doing something we don't really want to do, really, really, really focus on the positive aspects of it. That's your why. And if we can externalize that with a picture, you and your family on the beach in Boca, what did your job allow you to do?
Just because I'm from Long Island doesn't mean we only vacation in Boca. I take offense to that.
Of course it had to be the East Coast of Florida, right? So what did it allow you to do? Did your kid just graduate from dental school and you busted your butt to be able to help them pay for that? Do you have a dog farm? Do you donate to a charity that's important to you? Did you just buy your spouse a beautiful piece of jewelry? Whatever your why is, just remember and make a picture of it. Take a picture of it. If you don't want to make it a public picture, put it in your phone or something, but have a visual reminder of why it is that you go to work every day, why you do what you do. And if it's your paycheck, then great. If it's serving people, then great. But if you can associate this task, which really kind of sucks and is boring to you, with something positive, that will increase the likelihood that this habit will develop some momentum and get you going. So just to summarize, the first thing is get cues available for it and express the habit in some way, shape, or form, even if it's small. Associate it with positive feelings, like give yourself a little reward, something that you enjoy. It can be music. It can be smelling your favorite. I keep at my office, I keep candles that I don't light because I can't light candles there, but I keep them around because the smell smells really good. And also associate it with positive images of what your job allows you, the lifestyle that you live, or the gifts that you're able to give people you love, or the charities you're able to donate to, the things that getting paid allows you to do, and knowing that, hey, this charting that I hate, that's what gives me these opportunities that I really do work hard for.
You spent years learning how to save lives, but no one taught you how to secure your own. When you work one-on-one with a CFP professional financial coach, you get a blueprint tailored for the long game of your complex situation. At My Financial Coach, they help physicians choose the best strategy to optimize your annuities and investments, implement tax-saving strategies, and tackle debt like your student loans or mortgage while refining your path to retirement. Save up for that boat, a child's college or wedding, or even a vacation home. Plan ahead for the impacts of the unexpected and understand how much life insurance you actually need. Project how getting married, raising children, or taking care of an aging parent affects the progress toward your goals. Advice-only financial planning through a fixed monthly subscription, not commissions, to keep planning unbiased and in your best interest. A financial plan isn't just about your money, it's about your future. Visit myfinancialcoach.com/physician's guide to doctoring to meet with a financial coach and find out if concierge financial planning is right for you. Again, myfinancialcoach.com/physician's guide to doctoring. It's funny, it reminds me of an interview I saw with Harrison Ford when he was talking about being the Hulk in the new Marvel movie. And they said, but don't you feel ridiculous like acting against a blue screen, making these silly faces? And he goes, yeah, that's what the money's for. Yeah, if it was all just easy patience and enjoyable and fulfilling, then right, there's a lot of what we get paid for is the stuff.
And if it was easy, everybody would do it. And if everybody did it, then guess what? You'd be getting 32 cents an hour.
And sometimes the mundane stuff for us, the super stimulating stuff, is sometimes the easy, fulfilling stuff, and the mundane stuff is the hard stuff.
And every job has it.
Yeah.
Don't trick yourself into thinking that every job doesn't have it. Every job has it.
Yeah. And everyone likes to complain about it.
You got it. Yeah, that's normal. That's normal. So the overload and that kind of stuff I hear a lot about. I hear a lot about the balance.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Because in terms of caseload, I think that's beyond the scope of this conversation because that's more like contract negotiation and setting boundaries with your employer and deciding what you really need to do and what you owe to your patients versus what you owe to your family. This is more like efficiency and time management conversation. But still, it sounds like you do want to go down that road a little bit in terms of how we do manage those things. And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, just managing to be present with both of those things, right? You'll be able to go through your cases more efficiently if you're present in those cases and not feeling guilty about home and checking your texts and emails and things like that.
Correct.
And you'll be able to be more present at home and therefore have it more fulfilling for everybody and more enjoyable if you are not worrying about work while you're there.
Right.
So
you're right. And related to that, one of the things that I had a supervisor in, so I had the interesting fortune of having my first child while I was in my PhD program. And I had been married a couple years and, voila, the timing wasn't necessarily the choice that I would have made, but there was my eldest in my arms in graduate school. Oh, wow. And when I went on my residency, ironically, there were 3 of us who had a 1-year-old boy. And there were only 4 of us in the program. And one supervisor came to us and said, the best thing you can do is get childcare you can trust, because that will be on your mind all day, every day when you're here, if you can't figure that out within the first week of being here. And that was a lesson that I learned pretty quickly, that first and foremost, find childcare you can trust so that when you're at work, you can be at work. And when you have other things on your mind, you understand that at least I'm not worried about these human beings for whom I am very responsible, my own offspring. So the one thing is really making sure that you have the support network around you. And if that means taking some time to interview a lot of people and getting that stuff right, you got to do it. And related to that is making sure that your support network is solid, making sure that you work your support network, but also having firm boundaries around phone use, having firm boundaries around when you answer and respond to emails, having frank conversations with loved ones, friends, family, and then conversely, having frank conversations with coworkers and bosses. When are you comfortable answering phone calls? When are you comfortable responding to emails? When are you comfortable answering and responding to texts? If you're not on call, are you still okay with checking your email in the evenings? If you are at work and your spouse reaches out to you at work 3-4 times a day just to chat and check in, that may be okay with your employer. But I got to be honest with you, for me, when I'm in the groove at work, especially if I'm writing, it is like having my head jerked in a different direction when my phone blings. I really have a hard time being interrupted, especially when I'm writing. And so when I'm writing, I put my phone in airplane mode. I may be allowed to get interrupted. Nobody's going to yell at me, but I know that I have a hard time with it.
Yeah.
And so some of that home life balance for Cheryl, for me, is cutting out multitasking.
Okay.
It doesn't work. It doesn't. We know the brain can't multitask efficiently. And unless there's some kind of big time emergency or something going on, I have to be really firm that when I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm at home, I'm at home, unless I know that there's something going on. So even though I'm talking about a home life balance, and even though there may be times that you want to allow those interruptions to happen, I'm giving you permission to really know yourself and know how your brain works. And if you're a freight train on a track, and to pull you off that track is very difficult for your brain, which it is for mine, it's okay for you to set a timer and say, for the next half hour, I am not being interrupted unless alarms are going off.
So setting clear boundaries at home by having reliable childcare such that when you're at work, it doesn't need to be on your mind. Your home browser window doesn't need to be open, distracting you from your task at hand. And then the same thing at work, right? Being very clear that setting clear boundaries with your employer or practice or whatever, such that when you're at home, you're like, this is an okay reason to bother me, but not for anything else. Because when I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids. And that way, when you do have those late nights that you need to be working and long days and early mornings, you put the hammer down. And when I'm not there, I'm not there.
Very well said.
Boundaries.
Yeah. And for those people who don't have children, a lot more will be asked of you. In other words, sometimes you're taken advantage of. So
you have every right to have boundaries too. Yes.
Absolutely.
Just because you don't have kids doesn't mean you don't have a right to have boundaries.
Another area I hear from a lot of my professional clients, particularly physicians, is procrastinating, but I feel like we cover that under the charting. And
a little bit. I do want to talk a little more about procrastinating because we talked about it in terms of these bite-sized things that we need to do, like charting. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we have more like large, complex tasks. It doesn't happen to us that much. I'm not talking about when we're in the operating room, because that I feel like is a different story where we really shouldn't have difficulty with distraction, right? You are 100% focused on that person in front of you. No matter how many times you've done that same procedure, it doesn't matter. They have your undivided attention. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, I don't understand how my friends work from home, right? Anytime I have to do something for my expert witness work or for my podcasting or for the podcast network, there are lots of distractions all around. And I don't know how these people that work from home do these large, complex tasks undistracted. And so let's say it is something like a side gig, or you have to study for maintenance of certification, or you have to do these mandatory modules where you have to just sit through what is some of the most mind-numbing stuff. But then you're going to have to answer questions at the end, right? So when it's something more large and complex than what we talked about earlier, is there anything that we're going to be doing differently?
So there's two aspects to these large projects that I want to address. And I was thinking about back when I was doing grant writing and kind of applying some of the things that you're talking about here, your expert witness stuff and all of that. I want to talk about putting it off. And I want to talk about cutting out distractions when we do finally sit down to work. And some of the things that we can do in terms of minimizing procrastination would really involve a couple of different strategies. We have to break these down into smaller steps. We have to, because every big project is a bunch of little projects. And so you made the comparison to an operating room. and saying that person has our full attention. They have our full attention because we know the process that we need to follow. We understand that it is a series of smaller steps, and we recognize that if we don't do these steps in a certain sequence within a certain time frame, very bad things can happen. That's all true of the other things as well. So let's apply the same process.
Stakes aren't the same, right?
Correct.
Like me clicking through a mandatory module is not the same as an open belly on an
Correct.
operating room table.
Correct.
Right?
They're not life-threatening, but we still will end up with a poor result and be bummed out and not achieve our goal.
Yeah.
And so if we say, I want to finish this in a timely manner, so what you're saying is that because the stakes are not as high, meaning it's not life-threatening, I don't have as much of my brain chemistry working. That's how it applies to these executive functions. And so what you want to do is you want to make it seem like there's more at stake. So what you're describing is what Ross Barkley, Mr. ADHD executive functioning, calls the brain's fuel tank. You've got more motivation, more fuel going when you say, this person's life is at stake, than you do when you say, this is a boring module and it's no big deal. So we need to motivate ourselves. So number one, when we're talking about getting started, we want to look at this thing in terms of a bunch of little steps to get to an end result. Okay. Every big thing is a bunch of little tasks.
Okay.
There's two ways you can do it. Set a clock or set a task. I think of it like when I'm at the trainer, time under tension or how many reps I want to do. So I either want to finish the module or I want to set a timer for 15 minutes. And when that timer goes off or that module is done, reward yourself.
Okay.
Again, we're back to adding a positive emotion to whatever it is that you're working on. Go ahead.
So how do you eat an elephant? Right? One bite at a time.
You got
right?
it.
And so that's what you're saying is just focus on the bite in front of you. If you focus on the
With
whole
rewards.
elephant, it's going to be daunting. But yeah, so you've got to have those rewards. Okay.
But really get your emotion system involved.
Okay.
Meaning, think about the rewards. Think about what this is going to do for you. Think about the family that you're feeding. Think about all those positive things. But then minimizing distractions, getting those sound screens. There's another thing I want to give you a little hint about called a tone tape. And Barkley used to use this thing back when we would have tape recorders. And you could just play a tone at periodic intervals. So it might be 15 seconds and then a minute. And then 45 seconds, and then 3 minutes. And every so often and you would just hit play as you were working. And when you heard the tone, you would ask yourself, am I on task? And if you were, you give yourself a check mark. And as many check marks as you wanted, you would reward yourself. Or every check mark that you got at the end of 15 minutes, you would have that many M&Ms or whatnot. Nowadays, you can do it a different way. You can play music. You can set different alarms on your phone, whatever you want to do. But find a way to set different intervals. And during those intervals, when each of the alarms go off, you say, was I on task? Yes or no? And that allows task persistence. That will help you.
So you're referring to tapes like an 8-track
good old cassette
that
tape.
we would do, an old cassette tape, right?
And
Like
if
the 80s,
I still have a Walkman, then you can get cassette players on Amazon and they can Bluetooth and you can create a tone tape. I just bought a CD player that goes to my Bluetooth, but you can make these tapes where you play a tone at periodic intervals and they vary.
Yeah.
And then if you remain on task and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing at those different check marks or those different sounds, you give yourself rewards and that'll help you with task persistence. And you just say, I'm doing my tone tape and I'm going to stay. I like it for a treadmill for me because that's something that I really struggle to persist with. And I just say, if I stay on the treadmill through 20 minutes and I let the tone tape go, if I'm staying on task and I'm really pushing myself during these tones, then I'll allow myself, it's not food because I just totally counteract the tone tape, but I allow myself, if I do it 3 times a week for 4 weeks, I get a massage at the end of the month.
Excellent. Okay. So I was actually going to ask about that next. We was going to talk about self-monitoring. So this is the end of the first episode. Stay tuned because next week we're going to be releasing the second episode with Dr. Cheryl Chase where we talk about more improving our executive functionings. Thanks for listening. I have a favor to ask. You listened to the episode until the end, which means either you fell asleep or you really liked the episode. So please write us a 5-star review, take a screenshot, and email it to me so I can send you a quick guide on how to earn patient trust in 20 seconds or less. Email me at brad@physiciansguidetodoctoring.com and feel free to suggest a topic or guest. I take your requests seriously. The views expressed on this episode are those of the interviewer and the interviewee and do not represent the views of their employer or even their significant other. Even though the magic of podcasting makes it sound like I'm talking directly to you, this is not a doctor-patient relationship, and this is not medical advice, or financial advice, or legal advice, or really any advice. Thanks again for listening to Succeed in Medicine.